This is part 2 of my top 10 favourite classic era Doctor Who episodes, with a short description of each one and what I personally thought of them. If you haven't seen part 1, then clicking here is probably going to be the best option for you. So let's get into it. Number 5. Death to the Daleks. With the Doctor agreeing to take Sarah on holiday to the beautiful planet of Florana for some relaxation, they soon find themselves in serious trouble, as a large emanating power source from the nearby planet of Exelon drains the energy from the TARDIS, forcing them to land within the wastelands of this barren place. The two travellers head out to explore and soon end up split up, with the Doctor discovering that there are other human survivors from an Earth expedition marooned on the planet too, and with Sarah stumbling upon a large ancient temple structure, she is soon captured by the primitive local inhabitants and taken away for sacrifice. The Doctor learns of the terrible disease wreaking havoc across the inhabited worlds, and that the humans had been sent to Exelon to find a rare mineral in order to help create the cure. The conversation is soon cut short as another ship comes into land nearby, suffering the same power loss. The Doctor, along with his new friends, head over to see if anybody needs any help, only to be confronted by the Doctor's deadliest foe, the Daleks. With the Dalek ship losing power and their weapons suffering from the same fate, they realise that temporarily joining forces together seems to be the only option if they are to all get off this planet. But in secret they begin to fashion a more simple projectile weaponry in order to claim the upper hand, and soon they return to their typical ways. With the Doctor and Sarah now escaped, helped by the friendly Exelon that they meet, the Daleks begin to enslave the locals and put them into mining groups for the Perineum ore. Soon discovering the reason for the power drain, the Doctor begins a race against time to shut down the source of this power and stop the Daleks from leaving with all of the ore and destroying the planet from orbit. This story has always been a favourite of mine growing up, as it was one of the first VHS cassettes I ever owned, and I would repeatedly watch this as often as I could. From the concept of the TARDIS losing power to the ancient city of a vast advanced technology wasting away on a desolate planet, and for some reason I was fascinated by the new silver metal look that the Daleks had. The cave system and root-like structures of the city spread out, giving the building an almost sentient feeling to it, rather than this mechanical foundation. All in all, this adventure is both a mystery in the sense of who built this great structure and why, and also with the larger context of what was happening in the galaxy between the other races and the Daleks as they push their mighty empire out into the stars. It's full of plenty of action throughout and never disappoints me, no matter how many times I rewatch this one. Number 4. Remembrance of the Daleks. The Doctor returns to 1963 Earth to complete some unfinished business that he had, the Hand of Omega, a powerful Time Lord artifact that was hidden, which had now become vulnerable, with the Daleks wishing to obtain this power, and leaving the Doctor in a race against time to retrieve it before they do. With the Dalek Empire split in two opposing factions, Ace and the Doctor find themselves caught in the middle of a major power struggle between the Imperial Daleks and the Renegade Daleks, all striving for control over the Hand of Omega. With the Imperials hiding out a small task force at Coal Hill School, and the Renegades using a merchant yard as a base of operations, the local area has become a hotspot for danger, with random skirmishes between the two factions, and as the Doctor gains the aid from the military, with this small part of London soon becoming a battleground. Trying to hide this weapon from the two Dalek groups, he takes it to a nearby cemetery and has it arranged to be buried in an unmarked grave to keep it safe for now, but unknown to him, he was watched from afar by one of the human slaves working for the Renegade Daleks, and Ratcliffe, the merchant owner, sets about the retrieval of the buried casket. The Imperial Emperor Dalek on board the mothership in high orbit dispatches a shuttle to the school with several more Dalek reinforcements and one special weapons Dalek in support, with the aim to retrieve the Hand of Omega from the Renegade Daleks. A fight ensues at the merchant yard, and with a swift blow the Imperials destroy the majority of the renegades and leave, taking the Hand back to their shuttle in order to return to the mothership. The Doctor uses the teleportation pad in the school's basement in order to send a message to the Imperial mothership, and is confronted by Davros on the screen before him. Davros gloats at his victory as the shuttle now docks on board the mothership, but the Doctor proceeds to mock him, worrying Ace as to how far he will go, but he continues to anger him until finally Davros snaps and threatens to use the device, now fully installed into the ship's systems. The Doctor begs him not to, but Davros fires the weapon. It spills out from the ship and hurtles into deep space, but not towards the Earth below, but outwards, towards Skaro. And once it had done there, it returns towards the ship in a destructive finale, leaving Davros in a panic to escape before the impact. The Doctor severs the link to the ship and smiles, knowing he'd booby-trapped the device and tricked him into doing exactly what he wanted. This is such a well-filled, action-packed story with no time wasting. It gets straight into it and is a great part of the foreshadowing to the eventual events that lead towards the Time War between the Time Lords and the Daleks. Sylvester is on top form throughout, as are most of the cast, and nothing quite beats like watching large amounts of Daleks battling it out on the streets of London. Number 3. The War Games. Landing in what appears to be the battlefields of World War I, the Doctor, Jamie and Zoe are taken to a nearby military base where they are questioned by a general who soon believes them to be spies, and throwing Jamie into a prison and sentencing them all to be shot. The Doctor and Zoe manage to escape but have no idea where Jamie is, who now sits in his cell along with a confused Redcoat who thinks that the year is 1745. The Doctor and Zoe head back to the prison to try to rescue Jamie, but he and the Redcoat have already hatched a plan to escape. They are eventually reunited and soon realise that something isn't quite right with this place. A Redcoat in the middle of World War I, and an advanced computer control systems discovered by Zoe, and every now and again the people finding it difficult to remember how they even got there. As they attempt to drive away from the compound and out across the battlefields, they are soon engulfed in a thick mist, preventing them from seeing where they are. But once it slowly disappears as they emerge from the other side, they soon find themselves no longer on the battlefields of World War I. They climb out and walk a short distance to look around to see a group of soldiers and a Roman chariot striding towards them, eventually learning that they are not actually on Earth but trapped in some sort of war game separated into several periods of history. The Doctor decides it's time to find out who is behind this horrific concept. Hiding out within a barn in one of the other zones, the group hears a familiar sound as a large square-shaped box materialises in front of them. Once the doors open and several soldiers exit from it, the Doctor and Zoe go over to take a look inside, finding it to be just like the TARDIS, bigger on the inside. The door closes behind them and the ship takes off again, only stopping within the different zones to deposit several soldiers to them, and then taking off again until it finally reaches its destination. Finding a highly advanced society at the end of the journey, the Doctor soon has to go up against a formidable opponent known as the War Chief, later to be revealed as a renegade Time Lord himself, who is using his knowledge of time to help a warmongering species become better warriors by testing and learning from recreating battle situations on real people. Knowing that this problem the Doctor is faced with is even bigger than he can handle, he is given no alternative but to call for help from his own people, the same people he had been running away from for so long. In order to put a stop to the War Chief's plans, he must also, in turn, hand himself over to the Time Lords and face his own consequences. This story is a long one, at 10 episodes, but never feels like it's overly done. There is so much happening throughout, it rarely slows down to catch breath. The concept is clever and is sort of borrowed upon within the Five Doctors story in later years, It's also a very important one to the show's history, as it is the first episode to allow us to finally meet the Time Lords in all their glory, and to see Gallifrey for the first time. And with not only it being a regeneration story, but it is equally emotional as we see the departure of Jamie and Zoe's characters as well as the Second Doctor. Number 2. Terror of the Zygons. Arriving in Scotland, the Doctor, Sarah and Harry head to the local inn where the Brigadier is waiting for them to arrive and assist UNIT with an ongoing situation. He explains to them about the collapse of several oil rigs off the coast and several crewmen that are now laid up at the sickbay. Harry informs them that he intends to head there right away and take a look at some of the injuries while the Doctor and Sarah remain at the inn. En route to the sickbay, Harry rushes to help another crewman who has been washed up on the shore, but without realising it, he crosses onto private estate lands of the Duke, who was already annoyed at the rampant trespassing of his land. And now one of his men slowly lifts a rifle up, takes aim, and fires. Hearing the news about Harry, the Doctor and Sarah rush over to the sickbay where he has been taken, to find him with a wound to his head, but safe for now, watched over by a nurse. The Doctor leaves Sarah with Harry, and then leaves with the Brigadier, and upon finding some wreckage from one of the rigs that washed ashore, they examine it to find strange markings cut into it. He decides to get Sergeant Benton to arrange a cast to be made from it, revealing that the marks to be large teeth-like impressions. The Doctor calls the sickbay to inform Sarah of the news and to check in on how Harry is, when she is attacked by an unknown alien. Hearing her scream at the other end of the line, the Doctor immediately heads off to her aid. Once there, he finds her locked up in a decompression room and Harry missing from his bed. With Harry captured on board the Zygon spaceship, he soon learns of who these aliens are, as Broton, their leader, explains that they had crashed on the Earth a long time ago, and once learning that their own world had been destroyed, they had chosen to make the Earth their new empire. The creature they had been using against the rigs was so important to them for their survival, as the Zygons depend on the lactic fluid it produces, but it is also a great weapon. Sarah discovers a secret tunnel leading from the Duke's castle down to the ship under the lock. She sets about freeing Harry and several other captives, and they all escape before the ship begins to take off. UNIT tracks it as it heads towards London before coming into land somewhere in a disused quarry site, where Broton changes his form into the Duke using a body print method, and then heads out from the ship in order to take his place at an important conference meeting in the city. And with the Scarrison creature heading towards the Thames, the threat is huge, and knowing the destruction it could do within the capital, the Doctor heads with UNIT to the conference to stop Broton from hatching his devastating plan. I always loved this episode, from its beautiful setting to the interesting concept of the Zygons and their use of organic technology. Tom's Doctor is as entertaining as he always portrays him, with silly little quirks like his sense of dress when arriving, to the banter between himself and the Brigadier, much to Sarah's amusement. The story has a cleverly written plotline which plays perfectly into the Scottish legend of the Loch Ness Monster's mythology, and it doesn't disappoint. It's an all-round fun adventure and delivers everything a great Doctor Who episode should. Number 1. The Chase. Arriving on the desert planet of Iridius, Ian and Vicky head off exploring, while the Doctor and Barbara relax sunbathing in the planet's two suns. The peace and quiet is soon disturbed by the sounds coming from within the TARDIS. The two head inside to find that the Doctor had left the time-space visualizer on, which now shows the Daleks preparing to find and kill the Doctor at all costs. And realising that they are now on their way to the current location they're at, the two decide to find out where Ian and Vicky have got to and get away from this planet as fast as possible. With the sandstorm covering the TARDIS location and still no sign of their friends, The Doctor and Barbara soon discover that the Daleks have now arrived and are currently looking for them. Finally reuniting with their companions and avoiding the Daleks, they manage to get back to the now uncovered guarded TARDIS, and by tricking the nearby Daleks, they are able to enter and escape. Their celebrations are soon cut short though, when the Doctor discovers that the Daleks are still following them, tracking their movements, although delayed, through all of time and space. No matter where they go next, they will only have a short amount of time to deal with it and run again. The TARDIS materialises at the top of the Empire State Building in New York, and although the view is spectacular, they soon realise that this is no place to face their enemy, and after a confused conversation with the tourist, they re-enter and leave, with the Daleks arriving there shortly after, and finding no sign of them, they too re-embark and continue to follow after them. As the TARDIS lands, they step outside to reveal that they have landed upon a sailing ship at sea. They start to take a look around to see if they can use anything to stop their pursuers, but Barbara is soon found by one of the sailors, who believes her to be a stowaway. However, lucky for her, Vicky manages to sneak up behind him and knock him unconscious, allowing them to make their escape again. Each landing bringing the Dalek ship closer to their targets. They would need a plan soon before they ran out of time. With the Daleks arriving on board and finding the Doctor already gone, they immediately re-enter their ship, but not before terrorising the crew, who, in a panic, dive overboard, leaving the ship empty, which we find out to be the Mary Celeste. This time they arrive inside a creepy old house, where everything isn't quite as it seems. As they begin to look around, they soon find that the Daleks have almost caught up to them, arriving shortly after. Before they have time to get away, and in all of the confusion, Vicky finds herself left behind as the others only just manage to board the TARDIS and escape. Knowing that her only option to catch back up with them is with the Daleks ship, she decides to hide on board and wait. Arriving on the overgrown planet of Mechanus, the Doctor, who is still angry about how they managed to leave Vicky behind, informs them that this place will have to be where the battle they have been running from will take place, as they can no longer outrun the Dalek ship. After getting caught by the robotic mechanoids and taken towards the great city that towers above in the trees, the Doctor and his companions soon find another Earthman held prisoner within these walls. And as they all work together to find a way to escape, the Daleks arrive on the planet, and before long a battle breaks out between them and the mechanoids. With the Daleks kept busy and their forces now almost exhausted, Ian and Barbara realise that using the Dalek timeship, they would finally have a way to return to Earth in their own time, much to the disgust of the Doctor, who has become very fond of their company. He soon gives in and sets the controls for them, and they watch as their friends depart without them. This story is pure joy for me, and I regularly come back to it for a rewatch. It's sad to see Ian and Barbara leave, as they are personal favourites of mine, but still remains a fun, crazy adventure. The haunted house stop is always a great moment for me. It's almost eerily dark and very creepy, like an old-styled horror, and somewhat unexplainable until the final reveal. The introduction of the mechanoids was a great part, and it was fantastic to see them go up against the Daleks, almost like an ultimate versus battle. So that's it, my top 10 favourite Doctor Who classic stories. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if you could give it a like, that would seriously help the channel. And if you're interested in any other future videos I will be doing, why not subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on them. Thanks.